Those are Rochester police giving an update on an explosion, a car crash, an explosion there up by Rochester, New York. They say a large SUV, a Ford Expedition, collided with a smaller SUV. But that large Ford Expedition was full of gas canisters. It burst into flames, and now we're hearing from authorities saying that from what they can see, it looked like that larger SUV intentionally sped up, tried to aim for pedestrians, and ended up crashing into a rideshare vehicle that was carrying two passengers. The driver of the larger SUV and the two passengers in that smaller SUV all died in the crash. Now we're hearing of 9 pedestrian injuries. I want to bring in ABC News senior investigative correspondent Aaron Katursky and contributor former FBI agent Brad Garrett for more. Aaron, investigators are looking into the possibility that this wasn't an accident, a potential terror attack. The Joint Terrorism Task Force is investigating now. So what do you make of some of these new developments that we're finding out in terms of this timeline and what they found at the scene?
I think the most significant is that this appears to have been some kind of an intentional act. According to the chief, the driver is seen speeding up toward the crosswalk where pedestrians were moving from the Kodak Center after attending a concert toward the parking lot, and the driver speeds toward them. The chief also still hasn't been able to tell whether it was the impact with the second car that caused the big fire, or whether the driver, identified now as 35-year-old Michael Avery, had actually lit the gasoline on fire before crashing into all those people. But it does seem clear, Diane, the impact with the Uber, the Mitsubishi, that the smaller SUV, probably saved many more lives because it prevented the Ford Expedition from barreling into even more concert goers. So they're not finding any evidence at this point of any social or political ideology, no evidence that this is in any way foreign or domestic terror related, the chief said, but it does appear to have been an intentional act.
Brad, they're saying they have no reason to believe, at least they haven't found so far, any sort of political or social bias that may have motivated this. They do say that they believe Avery may have had some mental health issues going on after talking to people who knew him. What can you tell us in terms of how they now go about piecing together what happened here, particularly since that driver's dead?
So assuming that there is no information out there about links to extremist groups, etc., or this has any version of sort of a mass shooter type thinking, it doesn't appear that any of that is accurate, then you're really going to have to, Diane, focus on Avery and figure out exactly, what has he said? Was there a change in his behavior in recent days? Because, you've got a person that clearly is troubled, but rational on a number of levels just because of all the steps. Rents a motel room, that gets a rental car that's bigger than his car, apparently, loads it up with gas. I mean, all this stuff is intentional and somewhat organized. And so this is really all about Avery. What's really going on in this kid's head? And is this a delusion? Is it something that, does the concert venue mean anything to him? The people going to it, probably not individuals, but it might represent something. But the other side of this is, if you're somebody that's suicidal, and clearly this act has all the flavor of being suicidal, is to do it in such a spectacular way. Now, if you go to the mindset of mass shooters, they do things in a spectacular way because they get attention. Even though they're not with us anymore, they get attention. So is this an empowerment thing for him? Is it a mental health with a delusion and a fantasy? It may be all of those things. I'm only suggesting the short answer is it's really focused, it appears to me, just on him to figure out what may have been the driving force.
And Aaron, all they've said so far is Michael Avery's 35 years old. Again, possible mental health issues there. Not too much more about him came out in this presser. What else are you learning in terms of how investigators are trying to learn more about him and what happened here?
Well, they've been talking to his family, and we're told there's no prior history of police interaction. He's from the Syracuse area, so they've undoubtedly checked with departments in central New York to figure out. They say no police interaction. The chief would not say whether his family had sought any kind of treatment for what was described as an undiagnosed, mental health issue. But to Brad's point, Diane, he does appear to have taken a number of affirmative steps over a couple of days. The first on the 27th of December. So 2 days after Christmas, he checks into a hotel here in Rochester. 2 days later, he goes to Rochester Airport, trades his car for the big Ford Expedition, one of the biggest SUVs on the lot. And then the next day, he makes a half dozen purchases in the area of gasoline and gas canisters, and there were somewhere 12, 15 of them found in the charred wreckage after the crews put out the fire. And then on the morning of New Year's Day, an hour into New Year's Day, is when he drives toward Kodak Theater, where a Grateful Dead tribute band had just finished playing a New Year's Eve concert. So the planning for this did appear to have unfolded over a number of days, pointing again to what the police described as an intentional act.
Brad, police did describe it as an intentional act, but wouldn't answer whether they thought that he saw an opportunity with pedestrians, there, or if he knew that this concert was happening and he was going there. How do you go about trying to figure that out?
Well, I think you'd have to, again, go back to looking into his background. Has he made comments to the family about this particular group or this particular concert? Did he have tickets to that event? That all needs to be sorted out. But it's clear, based on what the chief was saying, that A, it was intentional, and probably he's going to the crosswalk where there are a lot of people coming out from this concert, but he happens to hit this SUV in the interim. So it looked like to me he was trying to kill perhaps a lot of people, including himself. But you go back to, but what's really the motive here? Beyond, in my mind, beyond suicide, what's driving him? What does he need to feel empowered, feel strong, whatever it might be? Because that's why you commit these type of acts.
Aaron, so far they say no journal, no suicide note. What are they looking for now to try to get some answers here?
Well, they did find things inside the hotel room where he was staying. They also searched his personal vehicle that he traded for this big SUV at the airport in Rochester. They found items there that the chief wouldn't say what was found or whether it leads them to any particular conclusion. But he did talk about what they didn't find, and that's evidence of possible political or social ideological motivation, no apparent link to domestic or international terrorism. But maybe there are some other clues that they're looking for that will lead them to further discussion down the road. The biggest clue seems to come from the conversation with his family and the relatives telling police about this undiagnosed mental health condition. But there are fewer clues, and you heard the mayor sort of throw up his hands and say, why Rochester? He doesn't appear to have any connections here that the police spoke of. Whether he knew about this concert, had tickets to it, all those questions are still being asked.
All right, Aaron Katersky in Rochester, New York. Brad Garrett, thank you both.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.